What's going on, guys? The Pope here from Team Hype. This is going to be, the start of the new segment I was talking about. It's called Pope Talks or something like that, where I kind of just talk about something Gears of War related as you guys watch some gameplay. So you got Gears of War 3 gameplay right now in front of you. It's just a random TDM game. I kind of just go in with the Nasher. That's my play style because I was a Gears of War 1 player at heart, so that's what I like to do. So I figured what better way to start out this kind of series than kind of just talk about the Gears of War franchise as a whole in terms of a multiplayer standpoint and kind of my opinions about it and the kind of the direction it went and just kind of review it as a whole for people who aren't too experienced with the Gears of War franchise, maybe only played one or two of the installments. I'm going to review Gears of War 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to touch Judgment. That is kind of like the bastard child of Gears of War, and I didn't play much of it, and I'd prefer not to talk about it. Um, it is a scar that will forever be on my life and the franchise as a negative thing. So I'm just gonna dive right into it. So we're gonna start Gears of War 1. Gears of War 1, start of the franchise here. In my opinion, the most fun one. The most players played it. Underground game to start with. Kind of hit shelves. People are really intrigued by the whole cinematic thing. People are really intrigued by the characters and the trailers and stuff like that. I picked up the game. I loved it. In terms of a multiplayer standpoint, obviously to this day, there are some bugs with Gears of War 1. Everybody knows, there's a lot of glitches. One of the negatives of multiplayer was there's so many different glitches that people kind of found out about. There's a chainsaw glitch, the crab walk, positive ones such as like the weapon slide and stuff like that. But so Gears of War 1, it's a very good starting point for the game. The core of multiplayer gameplay was the Nasher, and then you had, your sniper rifle, and torque bow is one of the more powerful support weapons. And then the Lancer itself was more of a tool, if anything. In the other franchises, you could use it as a core weapon, whereas your Nasher is your core weapon, and your Lancer is used to cross people, get into position, and kind of just use it as a tool in general, the same way as you would with like a sniper rifle back in the day. Obviously, the Gears of War, one shot down with the active reload. Not too peachy, but in terms of a sniper rifle standpoint, it was a very powerful gun, and it's used to just kind of put your opponents in awkward positions. But that's besides the point. So it was very positive for the Gears of War franchise in terms of multiplayer. Kind of kicked it off in the right fashion. They fixed a lot of the bugs and glitches, and people loved it. It was the talk of all shooters for the time being. From at least personally, I didn't hear much about Halo. Call of Duty 4 was a very good game, but no one talked about it. It was Gears of War, Gears of War, Gears of War. And then we creep on to the Gears of War 2 release. I believe there was no beta for that game, at least I didn't play it. We creep on to Gears of War 2 release, and it is a completely different game, and I think set the tone for the game as a whole for all Gears of War players, especially ones that were so dedicated to the first one. They implemented stopping power. I believe they extended the clip of the Lancer, and they made the rifles themselves more powerful. You got a loadout. The Hammerburst they remodeled to a single shot pulsing rifle, so as fast as you can click the trigger, the faster your gun shoots. The active reloads, I believe, got a little more powerful, and at least in the first patch of the game. You could take grenades and plant them on the walls, proximity mines. They introduced a second grenade as the ink grenade, which in the first patch at least was very ridiculous. I lost interest in the second one very, very quickly. I did play it casually with friends. Personally, I was a very competitive Gears of War 1 player. This kind of killed it for me, and I stopped playing Gears of War competitively after that for the most part. So, as opposed to the Lancer and the snipers and stuff like that being used as a tool, now you have the Lancer as your weapon. And for a while there, I was playing with guys that if they wanted to pick up the torque bow and they wanted to pick up a power weapon, they were dropping their Nasher. And I just don't think that's like the ultimate sin. Like, you never drop your Nasher for a power weapon, in my opinion. As far as being a Gears of War 1 player, like, that's just suicide. The maps on both Gears of War 1 and 2 were very good. The Gears of War 1 maps are fantastic. They're classic. The Gears of War 2 had some of the best maps I've ever played, though. So that's a positive for the game. They also implemented some very new game types. They did Guardian and Capture the Leader. Pick up the Meat Shield. So it added a few positives in terms of mechanics and stuff like that. But in terms of gameplay, it had positives in terms of mechanics and game type. And in terms of gameplay, it was a very, very negative feel. And I popped off of Gears of War 2 altogether and played Gears of War 1 again after about a year. Now that I look back on it, it's not that awful of a game. I do enjoy playing Gears of War 2 every once in a while. It's just at the time it seemed very awful, and looking back on it, you just got to take it for what it's worth, and it's a different game. Um, so we move on to Gears of War 3. The beta was pretty fantastic. Sawed Off was a little overpowered. Retro was a little overpowered, but a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool things. One of the things about Gears of War 2 was they slowed the pace down because a lot of people complained about, things are too fast, things are too fast. So they took Gears of War 2 and they slowed it down a ton. You could gain movement speed by rolling and stuff, but it was not enough. So in Gears of War 3, they kind of, if you come off of cover, you gain speed, and the game as a whole is just extremely fast. Your rifles increased power, your stopping power has been increased, your pistol has been increased, the active reload damage has been increased. They wanted to bring it back to a cover-on-cover game. Problem is, they added in the mantle kick. So if you're on cover in front of someone, the first thing they're going to do is mantle kick. Problem with the mantle kick is it's very buggy, and it shouldn't exist. It takes away from cover-on-cover fights. Another negative of the game is, the Nasher. They took the bullets down. They dumbed the power down. Bullets come out of your gun as opposed to centering your screen like the first one. But one of the perks is you can be very, very fast. In my opinion, Gears of War 3 of the three is worth playing because it's the most polished game. But in terms of Gears of War 1, I don't know. If Gears of War 1 was just as polished, such as the remaster, I would just play that. So as far as the Gears of War franchise goes, if you could kind of collect from what I said, every game was different in its own way. The characters were the same. The gameplay was 100% different. As a Gears of War player from Gears of War 1 to 2 to 3, I had to change the way I play the game every time. And I think that's where a lot of the fan base dropped off. After 2 and into 3, the fan base kind of tanked. So that's just kind of that right there. And one of the successors, Halo and Call of Duty, they're the same game over and over. They just add new guns and new maps. And I think, Epic wanted to stray away from just new stuff, and they wanted to create a whole new game. So now we're moving forward here. Got Judgment. We're going to bypass that, like I said. We got Ultimate Edition coming out, which is the first one remastered. They took all the bugs. They took all the kinks out. It's just a beautiful, well-polished game. It's Gears of War 1 at the roots with some modern stuff. They took spotting from Gears of War 3, which is a huge necessity, making something like the sniper rifle a very good tool, as opposed to being, a dominant weapon. Every weapon in Gears of War 3, every pickup was extremely powerful. There's no reason not to pick up any gun in that game. Whereas, in Gears of War 1, in the remaster, I may have a torque bow in hand, but I'm not dropping my torque bow for, a sniper rifle. Or I may keep my sniper rifle for instead of picking up a torque bow. You always have a decision making in terms of weapon pickup, not just pick up the first gun I see because it's super strong. So that's just my 2 cents. It's just this is a very quick gameplay. It's like 9 minutes or so. Just kind of an overview on a quick overview on just the Gears of War franchise in terms of multiplayer and kind of what I thought of it and kind of my personal experiences of what happened with it and probably a lot of other people as well. So please let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment, subscribe, check out my Twitch. I just reached 100 followers after about a little over a month of streaming, so be sure to check that out for me. I'll have another video coming up next week. It might be some Ultimate Edition gameplay for you guys, and I'm going to talk about the direction of Gears of War, Ultimate Edition, and maybe 4, and kind of Xbox and esports, and see what could happen with Gears of War and where that could go. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it. Stay tuned next time.